Sometimes, all I want is one clean frame, one still image to hold all of that motion. This isn't just a story about chasing America's most violent weather. It's about the impossible balance I face as a photographer while driving for a tour group, where everyone's safety comes first, where my pursuit of the perfect shot must be sought between the margins of their experience, and learning that sometimes your most powerful images come not from what you planned, but from what nature forces you to accept. Every year, I head out to the States with these two legends where I get the insane privilege of driving a bunch of awesome people around Tornado Alley to witness and experience what is, in my opinion, Mother Nature's most awesome spectacle. This is my photography recap of the 2025 storm chasing season. I guess for the uninitiated and those who aren't familiar with Tornado Alley, I guess when they think of storms and tornadoes, they tend to think of Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas. But for me, the state that always produces the most photogenic storms is always western Nebraska. It's here where the high plains twist moisture into an endless sky to create almost impossible looking sculptures, and it's here the tour starts with an important lesson that every chaser soon learns. Storm chasing isn't just about the chase, it's about the wait. But when you're responsible for a van full of people who've travelled thousands of miles for this moment, that waiting can turn into performance art. Because you're not just reading the atmosphere, you're managing expectations and energy levels and bladder breaks. And you're analysing body language for the growing anxiety of a group of people who've invested a lot of money in this experience. And in you. We explain that storms don't just appear straight away. The atmosphere has to first gather its ingredients, usually by peak heating in mid-afternoon, and even once the cake has risen, it still needs to be whipped into perfection. All the while we're internally calculating, how long can you keep them interested? Are they getting restless? Do they even want to go home already? You know, this is one of those things that nobody tells you about storm chasing, just actually how much of it is stillness and waiting. So much waiting. I mean, sometimes you can literally sit for hours just watching the sky brewing away overhead, and it often feels like you're watching a pot that might never boil. But then, almost imperceptibly, the pace shifts. One updraft starts to climb higher than the rest, its cloud tops begin to glaciate, and the first hazards arrive in the form of quarter-sized hail and erratic bolts of lightning.
After 11 o'clock, that white misty stuff falling from the sky is your hail.
And it comes as some relief when the sky starts singing your tune. I shoot lightning through time lapse, and of course the photographer in me wants that shot of lightning dancing in and around the Sandhills, but yeah, the tour guide in me also knows that the guests need to feel like they're part of something magical. Thankfully though, on this occasion, the guests don't need any photography guidance. They're all either capable shooters themselves, or just content to use their phone. This then frees me to wander, to try and find my perfect composition. Nebraska introduces Tornado Alley's photography paradox. Shooting in and around the Sandhills constantly reminds you of that photographic conundrum, that Tornado Alley is home to these endlessly flat horizons allowing for vast, uninterrupted panoramas of the sky. But it also means that you seldom have any foreground that isn't a barbed wire fence or a power line with which to contextualize your storm. Nebraska's Sandhills have this lovely, quilted, undulating quality about them, not unlike a sort of classic British countryside. And in that way can provide you with that foreground, but they can also obscure your view of the storm. They are both gift and obstacle. And yet, when it works, when the horizon undulates just right and the storm breathes in behind it. It's magic. The storm we're on was still evolving and sorting itself out, so the bolts are, they're weak, they're hazy, and they're hard to isolate through all the precip, but, I set the time-lapse running away anyway, not because the scene was perfect, but you hope that it will become something. And yeah, I find that's often the balance you have to live with between, what is happening and what you hope could happen. As our storm matures and starts to link up with others around it, I'm reminded of another hard lesson. In the distance, exploding somewhere over Broken Bow, an absolutely stunning supercell is soaring into the sky and it's glowing golden in the last warm light of the day.
Yeah, she's very pretty.
The photographer in me is screaming to pull over and grab that shot. But the storm we're chasing, it's not gonna wait. So yeah, it can often feel like you're trading what you think is the perfect shot in that moment for the promise of something more. Forming lines instead of the isolated structures we crave, we start leapfrogging down the highway trying to catch the tail end cell before it gets swallowed by the line.
Well, that wasn't particularly good for a lapse, on a structure.
You don't photograph these storms as much as negotiate with them, and that negotiation, it can often feel very one-sided. But sometimes, the atmosphere gives back. We rounded a bend and there it was, this lone corkscrew of a storm, perfectly poised over rows of hay bales stacked at a ranch gate. It wasn't the most dramatic thing that we'd see on this trip, but yeah, it had structure and it had mood. And more importantly, it was still, just long enough to compose the shot. And that's kind of what you chase, not just storms, but these moments, that balance between motion and pause. The next day we drove east into another hard lesson, one that tests every driver, every photographer, every tour leader, and every guest. The total bust. 600 miles into northern Illinois just for the possibility of something. That's the price of chasing. But the atmosphere doesn't care how far you've come. You learn pretty quickly in this game that the sky doesn't work to your schedule. It unfolds in its own time, and with no promises. After the first round of updrafts go up and drift away, the confusion sets in and something just feels off. We wait, we watch, we hope. But that most essential ingredient of supercell formation never arrives. Wind shear. Your disappointment is multiplied by the number of guests you have, because it's not just your wasted time and your wasted effort and your wasted toil. It's also their wasted time and their wasted hope and what they may well feel in that moment to be their wasted money. It's a kind of day that drains you, and the photographer in me is disappointed further because Illinois offered textbook Americana, rolling farmland, red barns, grain silos, golden wheat fields, and absolutely iron flat. Every storm chaser's dream. But the storms didn't twist. No structure, no drama. Just mileage and mild disappointment with no satisfaction in having tried. And because there's nothing to work with, there's no form, there's no shape, there's no contrast, you literally just start shooting out of habit rather than inspiration. The camera always stays close though, because even when nature isn't performing, you're still training your eye. You're still seeing. And I guess that counts for something. Not every storm rewards you, but the stillness teaches you a different kind of patience. Yeah, you're left wondering, how can you spin this? How can you still make the day feel valuable? I can commiserate with the guys because we've been here, so many times before, but you almost feel, in fact, you do feel embarrassed in front of the guests. You know, you have trouble looking them in the eye, and you almost feel like you have to perform again to be sort of visibly angry and disappointed. I mean, you are angry and disappointed because, damn, we didn't even get the cars wet. But, you know, the overwhelming feeling is just one of resignation. Because you've been driving for hours, there's no adrenaline rush of the chase to kick you out of the slumber that you're now in. And yeah, you just want to get to that hotel room and get drunk. In the end, I managed to create a little bit of magic from disappointment. We find an open space to watch the updrafts disappear under the gaze of the setting sun, the half-colourful sunset becoming a lesson in finding beauty where you least expect it. If day 1 taught you the basics of storm chasing and day 2 showed you the worst of storm chasing, then day 3 descended into misery. Sorry, we drove south into Missouri. Something like 8 hours of chasing, which turned out to be one of the most exhilarating, but also one of the most artistically frustrating chases of my career. We saw 7 or 8 tornadoes on this day. I got 1 photo. Whereas the Sandhills of Nebraska can be a nuisance, large swathes of Missouri are simply unchaseable. With Tornado Alley appearing to migrate further east with each passing season, it's becoming increasingly common to have to chase in and around areas like the Ozarks. Unlike the wide open plains, here we have to navigate narrow winding roads and dense forest whilst climbing up and dropping over hills. Missouri stands as a testament that, when it comes to chasing, west is best. Driving out of Illinois and south through the Mark Twain National Forest almost all the way to the Arkansas border, that made chasing a bit of a challenge. You have limited sight lines, you have no room to stop easily, and when you do finally come face to face with your storm, you then find you have to do these great sweeping arcs around the state, through woodland, over hills, basically trying to keep pace with a storm that absolutely refuses to wait. Then, after the long hard slog, the sky suddenly just opens up. The hills and trees fall away to a flat horizon, and right there before you is the most awe-inspiring sight.
This tornado right here. This is a radar indicated right here, right in front of us. Point, but again, we've seen these storms.
The antithesis of the previous day is the kind of moment that makes all the long hours and frustration worthwhile. It's the kind of moment that makes a tour.
Literally straight down the road in front of us.
Crossing the road barely a mile or two ahead is a ghostly white cone tornado that peels away slowly into a field. I mean, instinctively part of me starts preparing to pull over as I'm literally mentally framing my shot. But I've got 3 other guests in the car. The storm continues to move away from us, and there's this mad horde of other chasers to navigate. And then that tornado dissipates and is replaced by the most surreal sight of twin rope tornadoes pirouetting around each other.
Jesus Christ.
It is one of the most breathtaking scenes I've ever seen.
Absolute twins here. It's like Twister.
But also incredibly frustrating.
They're pirouetting around each other, oh my god.
Because all I can get of it is this phone footage, which keeps focusing on the raindrops on the windscreen. The adrenaline's coursing, we've been pushing hard since early morning. Nothing is organised at a hand. I mean, the storm isn't going to wait for you to get your act together. I can't focus, and neither can my phone. Slaloming around tree limbs and debris cast into the road, through damaged neighbourhoods, and navigating around an increasingly ridiculous conga line of chasers all out for their TikTok dollars, we somehow find ourselves chasing on into Kentucky. I Like, come on, man, Kentucky. We left Denver 48 hours ago. The chase, though, was still firmly in Missouri as the day continued to perfectly capture the chase's dual nature, the rush of witnessing something extraordinary and the frustration of knowing I can't capture it exactly how I want. It's almost embarrassing. This is the only photograph I've managed from this entire day. The ghostly apparition of a rope tornado dancing through a meadow right beside us. That one moment when responsibility and artistry briefly aligned. From the moment we left our hotel in Illinois that morning, I think we only stopped and got out of the car once, and that was on our first sight of that original cyclic supercell. And yeah, that's just how it is sometimes. I mean, sure, you see all these YouTube stars operating multiple cameras whilst driving and navigating, but you can't do that when you've got 3 guests in your car. Days like this and moments like these, rare, fleeting, powerful, they stay with you long after the photos fade. I've got my video, I've got my memories, but it's gonna haunt me for a long time, those shots that I couldn't take. And then you'd think that, after a day like this and after years of chasing, I'd have this balance figured out. That I could simultaneously capture the perfect tornado shot, whilst remaining focused, and keeping the tour guests safe and amazed. Yeah, that's what happened to my imagination anyway. I have loads of ideas for shots that I'd love to get, and in my mind's eye, I'm calm under pressure. I know exactly the shot that I want. I can see it, I can envisage it, even when the adrenaline hits. Yeah, but in the heat of the moment, forget it. And that's the delusion I live with, that I can somehow serve both masters perfectly. The Arnett tornado a couple of days later, as it approached the water tower under a perfectly structured LP supercell, bore all the hallmarks of a National Geographic shot. The storm slowly emerges out of the haze with an astonishing corkscrew updraft, and then the tornado begins to slowly descend out of the base. Off to one side, you've got the town's water tower, and it's looking like a Matchbox toy under this absolutely colossal corkscrew updraft, and I'm desperate to get out and get the shot, but the car's being pelted with golf ball hail. I mean, you start to get anxious because even though the storm's not going anywhere and the tornado looks like it's going to be long track, all you can do is shoot through the car window. In the end, you just think, to hell with it, you get out, you put your hood up, you run up to that fence line, and you just start shooting. You are so exhilarated, you don't care if you're safe. In between shooting video, dodging golf balls, looking around, making sure to see that the guests are okay, I'm just hastily grabbing what shots I can. And with the adrenaline coursing and just being filled with awe at this sight before you, yeah, I can barely compose myself, never mind my shot. Couple that with the fact that the tornado is advancing towards you, as well as having to dodge golf balls and look around to make sure that the guests are okay. Yeah, I just rely on instinct to get whatever shot that I can. And that image, that perfect image of the shots that I've envisaged, forget it. In these situations, you only get one chance at it, so you have to think quickly and let instinct guide you. In this instance, that instinct was to shoot video, which narrowed the window of opportunity for photography, so that when I did take that opportunity, I rushed. So I stop, I look up, I think, yeah, right, go wide, get a panorama of this absolutely incredible scene before me, because it is just sheer spectacle. You don't care about composition, you don't care about foreground, not that there was any. So, I go to shoot this panorama, and I start over on the left, and I like to expose to the right, which means that the histogram is bunched up to the right to allow as much light as possible onto the sensor. So dial in my settings, I start shooting over on the left, handheld, fast shutter speed, bang, 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 done. I go back to shooting video for Scene Nature's Fury. Only the settings I dialed in for the left of the scene are overexposing by the time I get over to the right of the scene, because I'm not concentrating, because I'm swimming in adrenaline in that moment, and I absolutely failed to notice that the sun had started to peek out from behind the storm, which means the last frame in that panorama is blown out. The scene was hazy enough that I can almost get away with it, but every time I look at this image I see the compromise, not just the technical mistake, but the deeper truth, that when you're responsible for others' experiences, and that you have to obey every whim that the weather makes, your art becomes a collaboration whether you want it to or not. This storm actually put down 3 tornadoes that we could count. The first was just as we were parking up and the storm was emerging from the haze. The second was the awesome 10-minute stovepipe, and the third was a crazy curly rope as we barreled down the road after it. But amidst the hail bombardment, the insane conga line of chasers, the intense drama of the chase, the sheer spectacle on show.
Oh, look at that, it lifts just as it gets there.
The most dramatic sight for me, which again I didn't get a photo of, was the last one, as the updraft uncoupled from the boundary layer. You could barely make it out through the haze, but once you did, like even in death, the sheer size of this storm was just jaw-dropping. There weren't many opportunities on this trip for pure lightning photography. Our foray into Nebraska yielded some uninspiring efforts early in the tour, but sandwiched between our epic tornado days, a trip into western Oklahoma on day 4 gave us the opportunity for safe, methodical, photogenic lightning photography. Here, the lightning was front and centre. It was the primary subject, not secondary to structure or tornadoes or blind hope. After pretty much busting out on yet another poorly modelled SPC forecast, we nevertheless stuck to our mantra of never stop chasing, and we ended up late in the evening on this cluster of weak thunderstorms whose rapidly orphaning anvils created this absolutely spectacular lightning display in the process. Shooting lightning at twilight is tricky as you have to constantly adjust for changing ambient light levels. Initially, this gorgeous twilight complements the hues of the lightning and makes the bolts glow soft, but contrast rises fast as the night darkens. I tend to stick to the mid to smaller end of the aperture scale anyway, so I can catch all the subtle colours in the lightning's aura, as well as reducing the risk of blowout, so the twilight wasn't too much of a problem. The cows became willing foreground subjects, their gentle movement adding life to long exposures. As chasing creeps ever eastward, areas that were once off limit are now part of the game, and midway through the tour we found ourselves chasing for the first time in Mississippi and Louisiana, before ending up back further west in Arkansas. Here, the atmosphere is tropical, and the storms are grungy. The terrain is still relatively flat, but the road network winds through swamps and woodland rather than the crisscross gridiron through farmland we love. Chasing here means grand vista shots are nigh on impossible. This is high Cape country though, where the moisture-rich environment tends to mean bigger storms throwing out big, thick bolts. But photographing them means accepting severe limitations. Because the air is so thick and humid in that part of the world, there's little in the way of a dry air component to separate out and sculpt the updrafts. And so for a landscape photographer who, lives for photogenic storms, it's maddening. You want to see bolts curling around updrafts, you want to see them striking out of the anvil, but there's no structure to any of it. At the end of the day, all you get are these diffuse flashes through this mushy sea of accessory cloud, and these occasional blindingly bright flashes out of the base of the storm. Every shot becomes a compromise between artistic vision and having to find the bolts through all the grunge. You could just about make out the last rays of the sun casting faintly against the tops of the updraft, so there's this lovely soft ambient pink light. But at the surface, it's absolutely pitch black. So you have that contrast spread to deal with. And the lightning even though it was distant, basically because this is high Cape Tropicana that we're in, they are really bright, so you then have that additional contrast spread to deal with as well. And, of course, there's literally nothing in the distance that you can focus on, because it's so dark and you're in the middle of nowhere. So in the end, I just closed my aperture down, dragged my shutter, crossed my fingers and hoped. Sometimes though, just sometimes, the photography gods, the tour gods, and the weather gods will all get together and have a party. Towards the end of the tour, we found ourselves back west of I-35, beginning in north-central Texas, which gave us one of the season's most phenomenal supercells. For once, I could serve both masters. I could indulge. Starting out as a classic supercell, the storm was slow, predictable, photogenic, and just crawled across a location that was both chaseable and accessible. But more importantly, it was one of those days when your responsibility and your artistry finally harmonized. I could get the drone up, I could set up proper time-lapse, I could even attempt multiple wide shots, and I could take my time about the whole damn thing. When it began to properly structure up, we knew we had to dive south. I mean, this thing towered beyond belief. We eventually get far enough south, and we stop beside this field full of wildflowers, and even though we're still some miles south of it, even with my lens wide open at 14mm on a full frame camera, I could still barely fit the whole storm into frame. Time slowed down. No hail threat, no tornado warning, just this natural cathedral gliding like a ballerina across the Texas hills. It was like witnessing something transcendent, just pure structure and beauty. For once, the perfect shot and the perfect tour were the same thing. Sometimes, chasing needn't be about the big moments, but about witnessing nature's quiet grace. And then we realised we were just west of Dallas-Fort Worth, and we had to be in northeast Colorado by 2 p.m. the next day. We raced for 8 hours to get into position in northeast Colorado. This is the hidden cost of chasing, just the sheer amount of driving you do. You're fighting exhaustion while maintaining responsibility for the lives of the guests. Body screams for rest, but the weather window demands movement, and so you enter into this constant cycle of exhaustion and adrenaline. This last day of the tour has to be one of the shortest but most intense chases that I can remember. The Akron supercell organised beautifully at first. We found a perfect overlook with the road disappearing downhill and lightning striking all around it. I set up a time lapse and just watched the storm grow and evolve. It starts to look the business, so we go in for a closer look. And from then on, photography went out the window. Funnels dropping everywhere. Come on. Multiple vortices spinning up all around us. Golf ball hail.
How are we not getting donked?
God, the photographer in me is seeing once-in-a-lifetime shots everywhere. But the tour guide in me is seeing 3 guests in the back of my car having one of the most intense weather events of their lives.
We're going.
Again, like with Arnett, my instinct is to shoot video because you just point and shoot and then you've at least documented the event. You've caught it in some way at least. To actually get out the car, dodge traffic, line up your shot, get your foreground, that's never going to happen. Not in that moment. I have to be mindful of the guests in my car. I have to be Johnny on the spot so that when the lead car goes, I'm right behind it. Like Arnett and Missouri before it, today proves that having epic chases and being able to take epic photos are a very rare mix when it comes to being a tour driver. The day's signature tornado, that beautiful white rope near Akron, I could only capture from a distance, completely washed out by Colorado's brilliant sun. And then, bizarrely, as quickly as it all kicked off, the storm just evaporated within the space of an hour, leaving behind barely a wisp of cloud. We drove for 8 hours for what was probably just 2 hours worth of chasing. I have to remember that I am there to do a job, which is to shoot video for See Nature's Fury as and when I can, but first and foremost is to drive the guests around safely so that they can get their memories. Somewhere in between all that, I have to try and get my shot. 12 states, thousands of miles, dozens of storms and as many tornadoes. But more than that, you've carried 5 people's trust across a continent. An incredible 10 days with some unforgettable sights seen, but which once again exposed my shortcomings of being in the right mind. Some shots I nailed despite the constraints, others I missed because of them. Hey guys, thank you so much for watching. The 2025 season had some of the most photogenic supercells in years, but sadly this year I could only make it out for these 10 days, chasing what the atmosphere gave us in that narrow window. Despite the compromises, the missed shots, and the constant balancing act, I still managed to capture images I'm proud of, and if you'd like to see the photos that made it, you can find them over on my website at stewshort.com. I'll leave a link in the description. Until the next one, thanks for being here.